Imagine holding a delicate brooch in your palm, its surface catching the light. Inside are strands of human hair, not synthetic fibers or decorative threads, but actual hair from someone's head. This isn't a macabre curiosity or a Halloween prop. For Victorians, this was an intimate token of love, worn openly on a lapel or pinned to a dress. The question that separates us from them is very simple. Would you wear your loved one's hair? Victorian society lived shoulder to shoulder with death in ways we've largely forgotten. Infectious diseases swept through households without warning. Childbirth claimed mothers and infants very regularly. The average life expectancy hovered around 40 years. Death wasn't an aberration or a distant tragedy. It was a frequent visitor, and families needed ways to acknowledge it, process it, and carry it forward. When Queen Victoria lost Prince Albert in 1861, she plunged into mourning that would last the remaining 40 years of her life. Her grief became a template. What the Queen did, society followed, and an entire industry grew around the rituals of loss. The mourning process had rules, and these rules had teeth. A widow was expected to mourn for 2.5 years, progressing through distinct phases that dictated everything from fabric choices to social activities. Full mourning came first, lasting a year and a day. Women wore dull black fabrics like parramatta or crepe, which had a peculiar matte finish that absorbed light. No jewelry was permitted except jet, a fossilized wood that could be carved and polished to a deep, respectful black. After this period came second mourning, where the crepe could be traded for silk and touches of white or grey could appear. Finally, half mourning allowed muted purples, mauve, and lavender. Each stage had its own visual language and everyone could read it. But the real message lived in the details. Mourning jewelry became a private code worn in public view. Lockets held photographs or hair. Rings bore inscriptions on the inside band, invisible to everyone except the wearer. Brooches and pendants incorporated symbols that carried specific meanings, ranging from weeping willows of grief, urns of the soul's resting place, and broken columns for a lifeguard shot. Hair jewelry was particularly popular because it was literally part of the deceased. Craftspeople wove elaborate designs from human hair, creating bracelets, watch chains, and earrings that kept the dead person physically present. These weren't morbid keepsakes. They were declaration of continuing bonds and reminders that love persisted beyond the grave. Hair was everything in Victorian mourning culture, and the craftsmanship behind it was extraordinary. Jewelers treated human hair like precious metal, boiling it to make it pliable, then weaving strands into tight braids, not thicker than embroidery thread. They created miniature baskets of flowers where each petal was a coiled loop of hair. They fashioned watch chains strong enough for daily wear and bracelets with clasps that locked hair behind glass bezels. The technical skill required was immense. A single bracelet might contain hair from multiple family members, each person's contribution carefully labeled and incorporated into the design. This wasn't just sentiment, it was a physical anchor to someone who no longer existed in the world. Hair doesn't decay, it remains unchanged for centuries, which made it the perfect material for expressing eternal connection. When you wore your mother's hair woven into a ring, you carried something incorruptible, a piece of her that time couldn't touch. Some Victorians pushed further into physical remnants of the dead. Teeth appeared in lockets and mourning rings, particularly baby teeth saved after a child's death. Fragments of bones were occasionally incorporated into jewelry settings, tucked behind glass or sealed in gold. Taxidermied birds, especially doves, showed up under glass domes, on mantelpieces, or in shadow boxes, representing the soul's flight to heaven. These practices feel shocking now, but they operated from a different understanding of the body and memory. Victorians didn't see these materials as grotesque. They saw them as sacred, worthy of preservation and honor. A mother who lost a child might keep that child's first tooth in a pendant because it was proof of existence, which was something real she could touch when memory felt insufficient. The emotional weight was crushing, but so was the need to hold on to something tangible when everything else had been taken away. The Victorians loved their symbols, and mourning jewelry was dense with meaning. Weeping willows appeared constantly, their drooping branches representing sorrow that bends but doesn't break. Urns symbolized the body's ashes or the containment of the soul. Broken chains meant a life severed too soon, while anchors represented hope and steadfast faith. Some jewelry incorporated lacrimatory bottles, which were tiny vessels supposedly used to collect tears, though historians debate whether they actually served this purpose or were simply symbolic. Angels pointed upward toward heaven. Forget-me-nots carried their message in their name. Each symbol functioned as a visual shorthand, a way to communicate grief-specific flavors without saying a word. When a woman wore a brooch featuring a weeping willow inside an urn, everyone who saw it understood she was mourning someone, probably recently, and that her grief was still fresh and raw. These weren't abstract decorations, they were emotional statements made visible, turning internal devastation into something the outside world could witness and acknowledge. Victorian mourning jewelry spoke in whispers and codes that only the informed could understand. Inscriptions ran along the inside of rings and the backs of lockets, hidden from casual view but always present against the wearer's skin. The word Mizpah appeared frequently, drawn from the biblical phrase meaning the Lord watch between me and thee when we are absent one from another. It signified connection across separation, whether through distance or death. Acronyms compressed entire phrases into strings of letters. IMO stood for in memory of, while AEI meant affection's eternal impression. Some pieces used the deceased's initials combined with death dates, creating personal timestamps that marked when the world changed. These inscriptions weren't meant for public consumption. They were private conversations between the wearer and the absent, reminders that could be touched and read in moments of overwhelming grief. A widow might twist her mourning ring around her finger during a difficult day, feeling the engraved words pressed into her skin, which was a tactile confirmation that her loss was real and her love still mattered. Gemstones carried their own vocabulary. Jet dominated the mourning jewelry market because of its deep black color and relative affordability, but it also held symbolic weight as a stone that was warm to the touch, unlike cold glass imitations. Onyx and black enamel served similar purposes for those who could afford them. Pearls represented tears and were acceptable during later mourning stages. The luminous surface suggesting grief softened by time. Amethyst appeared in half mourning, the purple tones matching the permitted color palettes while also symbolizing spirituality and temperance. White stones like diamonds or moonstones sometimes marked a child's death, representing innocence and purity. The choice of stone wasn't arbitrary or purely decorative. Each selection communicated something specific about the nature of loss and where the mourner stood in their journey through grief. A woman transitioning from black jet to pearl earrings was announcing her movement through the mourning timeline, signaling to her community that she was healing without forgetting. Mourning jewelry also functioned as a class indicator and a measure of devotion. Wealthy families commissioned elaborate pieces from established jewelers, featuring intricate gold work, detailed enamel paintings, and precisely cut stone. A large jet brooch with seed pearl accents and professional hairwork announced financial resources and social position. Working class mourners made do with simpler pieces, sometimes crafting their own hair jewelry or purchasing mass-produced items from catalogs. The size of the jewelry mattered too. Substantial pieces suggested the wearer's loss was significant and their grief deserved acknowledgement. A woman wearing multiple mourning pieces simultaneously was declaring the depth of her sorrow and her commitment to honoring the dead. This wasn't performative in a shallow sense. Victorian society expected visible grief, and the jewelry served as both personal memorial and social communication. It told others how to approach the wearer, what topics to avoid, and what emotional state to expect. The jewelry created a buffer, a visual explanation that saved mourners from having to verbally explain their pain to every person they encounter. Thank you for watching. Until the next one.